Hello, everybody. Good evening. Good afternoon. I would say good night, but if you're somewhere where it's nighttime, it's probably too late for you to be up. And hopefully, you are not at midnight or 1 a.m. watching this. But if you're on a replay, welcome. Um, Tonight, I'm so excited. This is the first of this series of doing these Monday sessions. I do sessions all the time, but I decided a little while ago that I wanted to do this session on Mondays just to have like a little bite-sized snack. In fact, I haven't even named what this is yet, but what I do know is what I want to accomplish on these. So these Monday night sessions are going to be little bite-sized mini workshop sessions that's going to talk about the offerings that LeaderKeys has. So it's going to help you with some insights into who we are, what we do, and I'm going to give you a little insight into like one of the offerings and services that we do, so you know how to engage with LeaderKeys. So I'm first going to make sure I didn't do the one thing that I needed to do, which was make sure that I didn't have the thing that makes my computer freeze all the time. So I just unplugged that, which is my battery. I don't know why it does that, but I'm ready. So, tonight we're going to talk about the whole brain thinking model and the concept of that. We are going to talk about how do you think. It's a psychometric that I have been doing now since oh my god 10 years. So since 2015 is when I actually got certified to actually do this. And I wanted this to be the first one that I did because whenever I do any type of program, I talk about mindset first. If you do not understand who you are going to struggle with figuring out other people. Like you really just can't do it. You have to be very comfortable and very knowledgeable about how you show up. And if you don't do that first, it makes it very difficult for you to really explore and dive into the different relationships that you have. So, before we get into that a little bit deeper, because we only have 30 minutes together, but I want to make sure that this is a really powerful 30 minutes for everybody who's watching today, let me tell you a little bit about my organization. So, LeaderKeys, Leadership for Black Women, we are a boutique consultancy firm that was founded in 2020. I am Latrice Torres, the founder and CEO of LeaderKeys. I have over 25 years of experience in HR, talent management, and leadership development. In the team, there is probably more than like 30, 40 years worth of experience. But we do bespoke career and leadership development consulting workshops and keynote speaking. I do speaking throughout the year at different types of events and different levels of events. And we hyper focus on developing authentic and unapologetic Black women leaders. Now, when we first started LeaderKeys, I started LeaderKeys because I was in leadership development and I did leadership development for a lot of years. So it was just all about, and the name LeaderKeys comes from like the gatekeeping that happens in leadership development. Who gets development? Who gets promoted? All of those things. They're just gatekeeping all around, like just all the time. Like if you were not like that janitor that walked around with 50 different keys on your key ring, you weren't getting into anything. Does that sound familiar? Who you know, what you know, how you go about doing it, all of the relationships, connections, engagement, all of those things, and be told all the time that you either are not good enough or you are too good, right? Have you ever had that happen to you as well? It's like you're too good, you're overqualified, or well, you're just not the right fit. That's a whole nother session, right? But these are the things that Black women often experience. So I pivoted my business at the beginning of this year to hyper focus on that audience, to hyper focus on Black women. Although my content can be used in any context, I tend to speak to that audience because it's the audience I know. I'm a Black woman myself, right? So when I dive into this content, know that yes, it is universal, but I am going to give it some context that's very specifically meant for Black women because I know what we go through in these workplaces and I know what it can look like and I know what the things that we deal with. So when we start talking about things like HBDI, That's the Herman Brain Dominance Indicator. This is a psychometric that is just like some you're probably familiar with. I talk about thinking styles. How do you think? Because that's what this measures. It measures thinking preferences. And it's all about flexing your whole brain style. We're going to get into what that means in just a second. But the key difference between HBDI, what we're going to talk about tonight, whole brain thinking, and some of the other psychometrics that you may have heard of is that it's a very visual model and it's all about practical flexing. So when you look at some of the other things, MBTIs, that's the Myers-Briggs. Some people know it as just Myers-Briggs. Some people know it as MBTI. MBTI is all about personality type. And when you talk about personality type, you're talking about like your inborn preferences, like how you show up in the world, how it impacts other people. And then they tend to have like these static labels. There are like 16 different categories. If you ever done an MBTI, you're like, I am a ISTJ or ENTJ or IPFG. I don't know. I do know because I'm actually certified in that as well. But there's 16 boxes. So, there could be any type of different combination of personality types, right? DISC is behavioral style. How do you actually behave and interact with other people? So it's all about workplace interaction. It focuses on behavior and not thinking or personality. Strengths Finder, which is another one that I actually do quite often, focuses on your strengths because there's an adage about if you focus on your strengths and not your weaknesses, your strengths are going to get better and they're going to overcome and overpower those weaknesses. You can always find other people who are strong in those weaknesses. I was just talking to a client just literally 5 minutes ago, and I was talking about how I hate budgeting. I can do it, but it's not a strength of mine. So I'm going to delegate that out every single time, right? So Strengths Finder does that. It's like, well, what am I good at? I'm good at facilitating. I'm good at coaching. I'm going to lean into those things. And the other things I can still do, but I may have to empower that getting done, that action through somebody else because it's not a strength of mine. Right? It highlights your unique top strengths and helps you with identifying and focusing how you can take those strengths and make them really work for you in your career. So that's the difference between the different psychometric types of things that are out there. When we start talking about HBDI or whole brain thinking, it's because there's been a lot of research on the brain, and it's really led to this understanding that each of us has this preferred way of thinking. It's just how we take on information and how we process it out and how we then react. And then how that ends up impacting others is because when you have an awareness of your own thinking style, then the thinking styles of others combined with yours and to be able to act outside of your preference is now known as whole brain thinking. So when I go into organizations and I work with leaders with whole brain thinking and creating a whole brain team, we take a look at where's everybody, how are they all showing up? How's everybody showing up? And where are the strengths and where are the deficits? Where can we get stronger at? And then once we know, then we can go, oh, well, then we can stretch into that. We can make sure we bring that in. That's what I do as a Herman certified practitioner is I help you take the power of individual thinking and then collective thinking and bringing all of those things together so that you have a powerful thinking machine. So you may be familiar with the concept of left brain versus right brain. That means you actually already know half of this model. This is not one of those that is like extra, again, 16 boxes or 32 facets or anything like that. There isn't. The brain, the human brain, and how it is processed, how things are processed, is mapped out in 4 different quadrants. Now, when the original research on this was done, they literally put diodes onto the head and then ask questions and see where it lit up. And that was some of the early brain research. That was before there was imaging to see exactly what part of your brain is doing what. And so now your brain is logical, analytical, sequential, and organized. What is that? And organized, right? This is your prioritizing, your maintaining. That's that type A, right? And then the right side of your brain is envisioning and harmonizing. It's creative, it's your visual and your interpersonal and your balancing, right? That's the physiology of the brain itself. They just took it and made an architecture to organize that into this ABCD quadrant, assigned it some colors to give this whole brain model. And then the psychometric of the HBDI, that Herman Brain Dominance Indicator, is the assessment you take to then show you how your brain is actually processing information instead of the diodes, right? So instead of doing that, this is what we do. And then this allows us to give us some insight. I'm able to do this with my clients through the psychometric, and then to help them work through where are their strengths at, how are they actually processing information, and what opportunities do they have to actually be able to be more whole brained about the way that they approach their work. Now, I will say all the time, when you start looking at this, you start recognizing yourself and you start recognizing others in this. All right. So as I go through each one of these quadrants, I want you to think about yourself, but I also want you to think about some of the people that you interact with. Let me tell you how many people I've talked about like, hey, can you come and do this with my spouse? Because this may explain a lot of things that may be a disconnect or may be really powerful about why we're very connected. So when we look at this model and we break this down, that left side, that facts, that is, they're asking the question of what? They're showing up in the room and they're saying, what do I need to know? Because their rational self is taking over. They're going to be analytical. They're going to want to quantify things. They're very logical. They may be critical about things because they're really trying to get to the fact of the matter. They're realistic. They like the numbers. These are the people who are really good with money and they know how things work, right? There's a right answer for things. That form, which is that represented by green, that's the safekeeping self. They're showing up with wonder, but how do I get things done? These are usually people who take preventative action, or they establish the procedures. They get shit done. And I've officially cursed, so that means tonight's session has officially begun. So they get shit done. They're reliable, they're organized, they're neat, they're timely, they're detailed. They have the plans. They are the people who are going to make sure it all gets done, right? You always need that person in the room. They're asking how, but how are we going to do it? When it's that feelings, that red quadrant, they're asking, but who? Who's going to receive this? Who's going to be impacted? What is this going to look for? How are they going to react? Are we thinking about the people, right? They're sensitive to others. They tend to like to teach. They like to touch in terms of like they need to feel. They're very kinesthetic, hands-on, right? They're supportive, they're expressive, they're emotional. They tend to talk a lot and they lead with the feeling. How are people? This is the feeling self. How are people going to react? And then you have the yellow quadrant. This is the people who are thinking in the future. This is the experimental people. I can't talk tonight. They're asking the question, why? They literally are the people who are coming into these sessions and going, okay, why are we here? Why are we doing this? Why have we always done it this way? Why can we not change? Things like that, because they're inferring, they're imagining, they're speculating, they take risks, they're impetuous, they're breaking the rules because, hey, they can. They like surprises, they're curious, they do things that are going to allow us to kind of play around and feel our way and get through it. They're the people who come in and go, I may have a crazy ideal here, or have we thought about? So that's what you usually hear from someone who's coming from that quadrant first. Now, you might have said, oh, I'm all blue or I'm green. I am the detail person, right? But the thing is you have some of each one of these quadrants. Everyone has some preference in each one of them. We just may have more in one than another. In fact, in all of the teachings in there, the word no is never used because there's no such thing as having no preference in something. You may have low, but you don't have no preference in it. And so your brain may think, what last, right? Because you're too busy envisioning the future and figuring out how it's going to impact people, and then moving to how you're going to actually execute, that you may stop and go, okay, wait a minute, what are we doing? Right? Or you may be like, look, I need to know what we're doing. I can't think about how anybody is impacting until I'm really, really clear on what we're going to do and how we're going to get it done. Right? And then they may completely miss how other ways to get it done, or who it might impact, or what the fallout might be. So there's all these different things. And if you're picking up what I'm putting down right now, you probably are realizing you work with all of these people, because typically in a workplace, there are people who have strong preferences in every one of these quadrants. The goal, and what LeaderKeys comes and does, is helps you go, well, what are the strengths of what people are bringing in? Who is getting clear on what needs to be done? Who's focusing on why it needs to be done? Who's tuning into who is involved and who's impacted? And who's going to ensure that everybody knows how it's going to get done? And I help you uncover that and then leverage it. Like, how are we going to do this to make our team strong? Right? You're going to want to watch this replay and come back probably to this slide to fully understand this, because this is how you're going to engage with how you understand yourself and then other people and how people are showing up. Just as important as understanding the strengths of each quadrant is what one. Right. So you probably were sitting down and thinking, okay, this is how I show up. I show up wanting to know all of the details and wanting to organize everything. I put everything together. I plan our family trips. I do all of those things and everything like that. Right. So then when somebody is very disorganized, it sets you off, right? They don't have an agenda, or they begin meetings and end meetings late. That's my big pet peeve. Y'all saw I start at 6 o'clock. We're going to end at 6:30. We will not go over, not even a single minute, because I can't do it. My soul can't do it. So like ending the meetings and events late is like, oh my God. But if you're the type of person who is like, you know what? If we go over 30 minutes, nothing's going to blow up. We're good. Right. But you're dealing with me. We've got a clash, right? So, if you tell me in advance, you know what, Latrice, I think we're probably going to go 5 or 10 minutes over, then at least you told me. Now it's a part of my plan. It's a part of my plan. We've talked about it. And I can go, okay, I'm okay with that. Right. But if you just do it, baby, we want to probably fight about it a little bit later, because I'm going to be upset. So like knowing these different frustrations is very valuable. Knowing what frustrates you and what's frustrating them. Because if you know the strengths, you know what's going to make a person happy, right? And then you know what is going to piss them off, then you can figure out ways to move and adjust accordingly so that you can float somewhere in the middle of there. You can make compromises. You can stretch into and be like, you know what? I don't usually think outside of the box. I don't usually, look for other perspectives. But in this case, I think it's going to be necessary. I think it's going to be helpful for us, and it's going to be helpful for you. Let me at least hear what you got to say, right? So there's plenty of that. And you could probably think of lots of different ways to go about doing that in terms of stretching into different quadrants as well. So I'm basically taking what's normally a 2 to 4 hour workshop of practicing, understanding this, really diving into these concepts and whittling it down into 30 minutes. But this is what LeaderKeys does. We basically help you with going through, understanding this concept, and then taking the time to actually reflect. So I'm going to give you a moment to do that right now. I want you to think of a recent challenge, whether it's at home or work. Which quadrant did you use most? Where you're like, okay, let me understand the facts. Let me understand exactly what is going on. Break this down for me. Did you want to understand the process? Like, how did we get here? What is going to make things better? What needs to exist in order for everything to be okay, right? Did you think about the people? Who's impacted before we even going through anything else? Like, who's going to be impacted? How are they going to respond? What are we going to hear from people? What do people want to hear from us, right? If this is like, even think about something just like the last argument you had with your significant other, like, what were you thinking when you had that argument? Like, what what are they talking about, right? I don't even understand. Where are they coming from? Or were you thinking, oh my God, they're so emotional. I need to really understand what's up underneath that emotion. Or were you sitting down and thinking, how can we get this? How can we go about do something different? Like, what is this? Are you thinking about different ideals? Are you experimenting? Well, how about we try this? Like that. How are you showing up? And then also, what are you neglecting? What are you not? What do you never ask? What questions are you not asking? Right? Remember the what, the how, the why, and the who. We all start somewhere. Think about even just telling a story. When you get ready to tell a story, how do you normally start the story? Do you just jump right in with all of the details? Here's what's happening, right? Or do you go, let me give you a little bit of background? A lot of people start stories that way. Let me give you a little bit of background. Before I tell you this, I need to tell you this, right? Let me give you that. Or do you start with a question? Can you imagine if you did XYZ? How would you blah, blah, blah? Do you start with a stack? That's usually that yellow, right? Of kids kind of thinking outside of the box. Or do you start with, look, I'm feeling this way, or this is how somebody is reacting, or something like that. Do you start there with the people, with the relationships? So think about that next time you're just having just a general conversation. How do you start the conversation and where do you go? Because 9 times out of 10, you're going to go into each one of these quadrants. It's just in the order in which you go into it. The time in which you linger. You may linger in the people part more. You may linger in the details more. You may linger in setting the stage and making sure you have all of the background, right? Or you may just be like, I will tell you about it, but honestly, I just really want to come up with a solution and just linger there and be like, forget what happened. Let's linger. Like, how do we get to the next thing? Right. So where are you showing up? What are you neglecting? Take a moment to really like process that in next time you're dealing with something. So this is what we do. We help you go beyond the assessment. We first do the assessment, we figure out like how is our brain processing thing, and then we guide you through this whole brain thinking so that you can get to the real work, which is building strong leaders, inclusive teams, practical action plans, like really, really putting this in. I used to have on this slide like lots of different ways to apply this, but that list just kept growing and growing and growing. I've used this to help with problem solving, with brainstorming and masterminds, and all different, and communications and critical thinking, coming up with new solutions. I've helped a lot of teams do a lot of different things that become more powerful when the people on that team really understand what are they really strong in and what do they need to make sure that they don't forget, so that they have more of a whole brain, whole functioning team. This is what we want to get to. So I always have a take action in everything that I do. And so I want to make sure you have a take action, some kind of takeaway from here today as well. So what is one action you can take this week to think more whole brained? Take a moment to think about that. It could be anything. It could be something that you're working on at work, at home, or at home. It could be something that you are, pondering in terms of trying to plan. It could be a project that you may be stuck on. Think about something that you are struggling with this week, or that you want to make better, or you want to find a new approach. Where have you been stuck? Which one of these quadrants may you be stuck in right now? where coming out of it and moving to another one just may get you unstuck, right? There's so many powerful ways to think about how whole brain thinking can help you. But again, it starts first internally. How am I processing information? How am I taking this in? How am I showing up? And, and when you show, are you showing up authentically in terms of what is in your power, what you can actually do, and how you may be able to pivot? During the long session, I always play this video called It's Not About the Nail. Do yourself a favor after this, go on YouTube and search It's Not About the Nail, because you're going to see a dynamic of someone who is really, really stuck in that red quadrant talking to someone who's really, really stuck in that blue quadrant, and watch that play out. Then think about, how is that showing up in your work situations, in your home situations, in all of your relationships? It may have a lot to do with some of the struggle. Because, like I said at the very beginning of this, if you don't fully understand yourself, fully understand how you're showing up, it's very hard for you to understand how other people are showing up. You can't do it. So, what I offer is for you to get a better understanding of that. So, what's next? LeaderKeys can help in a lot of different ways. For you, you can come to me and I can help you with it and getting the survey, doing a debrief, really having something very personalized to help you unlock your whole brain thinking potential. If you're a leader of a team, we can get on a discovery call. I can help to introduce the power of whole brain thinking to your entire team so that you can enhance collaboration, communications, and execution. And for your organization, you can bring whole brain thinking to your organization to help build upon your existing leadership offerings. When I tell you this is so powerful to layer under other things, if you have a communication skills class, starting with this will instantly boost the productivity of anybody taking that class, right? Problem solving, negotiations. Just think about all of the different leadership offerings that you have. Layering this underneath that, or within it, or on top of it, all of a sudden makes everything so much more powerful, because you're learning how to actually interact with others in very healthy and powerful ways. Right? If you mention this session on LinkedIn and tag LeaderKeys, then I will give you a 20% discount on any service or event that you book with me. So you want to make sure you bookmark this, come back and look at it. This will live forever on YouTube. So you can also go there. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook now, but it'll also live forever on YouTube later. So there's a lot of different ways, whether you want to contact me for yourself, for your team, or your organization, that LeaderKeys can actually help with supporting you through this. If you're watching this on your laptop now, now's your chance. Break out your phone. You can scan my QR code. That is all of my links to the Calendly, to the website, to anywhere that you need to go in order to connect with me. So I'm going to leave that on there at 6:29. And like I said, I start on time, I end on time. So I'm going to keep that. It's been a pleasure being on here tonight. I hope you have learned something. Definitely share this replay with anybody that you know could use a boost to their team performance, to their self-performance, their self-development, or to bring it into their organization. I'd be happy to get on a call and talk about how LeaderKeys can be your partner. So with that, have a wonderful evening. Thank you everyone who joined here. Share, like, tag, all the good stuff. All right. Have a good evening, everyone. Bye.